Yeah, good day, everybody. Welcome back to our Working Together series. We've been trying to restructure the times that we're going to be doing this session with Rabbi Ingber. Currently, he's in Israel, and so there's 11-hour time difference from where I am, so making things work. And I know with the Netiv group, who's in Texas, they're a couple hours difference from myself, and most of our listeners are in the Eastern time zone. But it's a joy to be back. We're just waiting for the rabbi to join in the Zoom room, and I've got several people in there with the Netiv group. Always good to be with, see some people we haven't seen in a while, but yeah, so we're looking forward to hearing what Rabbi Ingber's got to say. So bear with us. We're just waiting on the rabbi to show up in the Zoom meeting, and we'll be with you in a second. Oh, Rabbi Ingber just arrived in the Zoom meeting, and so give him a second for his Zoom to connect. Let's see. Okay. Shalom, Rabbi Ingber. We're glad to see you're here. I'm going to just turn this over to you. We got Tar up on the screen currently. Rabbi Ingber, are you there? You can probably hear us. Your microphone's off.
Okay.
There you
go. You can hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you, Rabbi. You're live. We'll turn the class over to you, sir.
Okay. Let's see.
So good to see you.
Here? Good to see you all. Who's here today? Okay. Good to see everybody. All right. Hello, hello, hello. Okay, it's been a while. How are we all doing? Great. Okay, so what I want to do is, before we get started, we have not seen each other in a while. Phone is a little messed up here. We actually started in a while, so I'd like to first open it up, just get a little discussion to hear what's on your minds, and then I'm going to take it from there and try to share what I can. So let's get some questions, ideas, thoughts, just to hear where you're all at. As I said to you many times, the rule is we can only give as much as somebody wants to receive. So I got to know where you're at, what you're thinking, what's on your mind, what's important to you, and then hopefully we'll be able to pour something into your vessels that you could have something that I can fill you up with.
Rabbi Dan here. I just came out of a class that was speaking about Purim upcoming this week, and somebody made a comment that a well-known rabbi had made a message out there that had to do with we've got a solar eclipse happening this month, and yeah, with the time of Purim happening, I don't know if you might have anything to say with the exciting times indeed.
Okay, I'm going to take a few questions at once, try to see if we can tie it all together. But we'll talk about Purim, what maybe solar eclipse, does that mean anything, not mean anything, and how it ties to Purim. Got it, good. What other questions we got? Questions or ideas or thoughts or comments that we could tie together? Anybody else want to throw something out? Feel free. So you're all on the spot now. Now I'm sitting back comfortably. I'm sipping my mint julep here by the beach. No, I'm actually not, but but now you're on the spot. Okay, what else we got?
I'm gonna step in here.
Good, Tar. Good.
I don't like being first, but I don't like dead air either. So
good. It makes everyone nervous. I know.
Been reading a lot about building the temple in your heart, and I'm starting to think, and don't, maybe the third temple ain't going to be built. I know it says it is, but it's got to be built in our heart first, or is that the only place it's going to be? I'm not trying to go against the word, the prophets, but the temple in our heart seems to be the most important thing to build right now. So.
Okay, so let me answer that one on the spot now, and I'll take the other ones, okay? And I'll come back to Dan's in a second, because Also, Dan, we wanted to do the thing about holding my hand up after I say the idea, right? We'll do that. Dan? Okay. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to share with as many people as we can some of the ideas we're talking about. So what Dan and Rod have offered to edit. So I'll put my hand up at the end of this idea, so they'll clip it and make it into one specific thing. Okay, let's get to Tara's question. Okay. So when we talk about building of the tabernacle, building of the Mishkan or the Beit HaMikdash, the temple, it's building a house for God. Now, that's kind of mind-boggling. How could you build a house for God? That's what even King Solomon says. How is it possible? What does that mean? And the deeper answer is that really, if everyone was worthy, like the forefathers of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, then God's presence would reside in each one. And that's why after the sin of the golden calf, it said before they built the tabernacle, they would go to the place where God's presence was, and it was called in Moses' tent, in Moshe's tent, because the human being has the ability to hopefully purify themselves where God's presence can be upon us. However, it is very, very hard for any individual to be perfect. And therefore, what happens is God says the way we build the temple, the way we build a place that God's presence resides is to unify. Everyone who builds the temple goes and takes a part of themselves, something that a quality that they have, and they donate it, they give it to build together. What does it mean? It means we're creating a one entity. We're taking right now, as opposed to I'm an individual that I'm separate, and I say, you know what? Maybe I have some good qualities. I have a good right hand. I give charity with my right hand. But my left hand to say no when I have to, I'm not so good at. But you may be good with your left hand. You have qualities that I don't have. And therefore, the temple is built by unifying and getting the people to come together and to build one perfect entity by all of us combining. So the fact is that although it's true that in one sense we have to, our whole lives are to make ourselves a temple that God's presence can reside in. It is impossible for any individual successfully to do it. It could have been, if it wasn't for the sin of golden calf, at that time, the Jewish people were on that level. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were on that level. But because it's not, and we need to do it as a people, as a whole entity, we all need to combine to have one place. So it's both true. You need to build the temple in your heart. You need to make yourself as pure as you can, but don't think you can do it all on your own. You need to combine to have one central place, which is where the third temple will stand, where the first temple stood and the second temple stood, where Abraham offered Isaac up as an offering to God, which means he took the most beloved part of himself and he reconnected it back to its source. That represents a place on earth where all people can have that, even if someone's not worthy. That's why King Solomon said, he prayed that everyone will turn, even person, Jewish, not Jews, everyone from foreign lands will turn and be able to, even if they're not perfect, to be able to be brought into the system where there could be a unification of a place where people with pure hearts and adding to each quality that they have can make a place that God's presence permeates. But on a deeper level, yes, the more we purify ourselves, the more a person becomes holy, the more he will have that quality. That's even, I think I shared with you once, it says that in the future, the Mashiach, the Messiah, in a certain sense, will actually teach the nations of the world even more than the Jews. Why is that? Because it says in Yirmiyahu and Jeremiah, it says that in the future that the Jewish people will return to a level of prophecy that they won't need necessarily the Mashiach, the Messiah, to teach them. And he will teach the nations of the world to make sure that everyone will be part of this process. So the answer is yes, on one level, we need to purify ourselves. And the more we purify ourselves, God's presence will reside within every individual, Jewish, not Jewish, every individual purifies himself will have to whatever degree that experience of having godly experience. However, to have the level that we're talking about of really experiencing God's presence, that we need to combine together to get all the good qualities and put it in one specific place, the place where it says that the heavens kissed the earth, the point where God started the creation, the point where Abraham offered Isaac, the point where Jacob saw the dream of the ladder. That point is the point where again we'll have that reconnection in the future. Okay, Dan, that was the hand motion. Okay, good. All right, very good. Any other? So no, Dan, I got your question still. Let's get some more questions because we had a perm thing. I feel maybe more perm things, so I'm gonna combine those. Tara, did you understand what I said? You want to comment on it? Does it make sense?
No, I understood. And I realized that there's no way our temple can be built in us because it cannot ever be pure enough for Hashem. That's to me, that's understand why that we need the temple. That doesn't mean we don't try, but
That's right.
itself.
That's right.
But there's
right.
no way Hashem could stay in me 24/7 because there's too many times that my soul is not, my body's not fit for it. So I take that out of it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's yeah. We have to make ourselves into a vessel. It's not so easy. It's not so easy. That's the job. The job is the more you could, and that really, by the way, Dan, I'm going to do another thing. I'll put the left hand up when I start, the right hand when I finish. Okay. So I'll say a new idea. Okay, it's not left hand. So new idea. So yeah, so also you have to understand something very important. God is always giving to us. See, we have the wrong concept. We believe that God's not giving to us, and we have to find a way in prayer, and we have to push and to pull, but that's not exactly the truth. What happens is God is always giving to us, but we have to open ourselves up to receive. He's put the money in, but your wallet's closed. Can't get it. So the process of prayer or the process of good deeds, or the process of change, that all allows the constant flow that's coming down that God wants to give us. It allows us to actually receive it. Because if I'm pouring water in and your cup is full because you think you know better and you think you have everything you want, you're not an open vessel, nothing goes in. And that's a very, very deep lesson for us. God's always giving to us. We have to be able to receive. Okay, finish that idea. Okay, good. Very good. All right. Other questions, ideas, comments?
I'd like to ask,
Yes.
this is the first time I've been on this Zoom. And
Welcome, everyone.
Thank you. My husband and I are interested in participating in some kind of Noahide community. And we're just wondering what's sort of the relationship between Jewish community and Noahide community, and is that sort of something yet to be very much established, or is there something perhaps I don't know about? Because I was raised Jewish. My father's Jewish. My mother converted conservative. So in trying to study more seriously, I've been basically rejected because according to Halakha, I am not Jewish. So I've discovered Noahide, and that could be something perhaps that I could contribute to more efficiently or better way than, attempting to go somewhere where I'm not really welcome. So, yeah.
Okay, all right. So there's a few parts to that, Ellen. First of all, we're glad you're here. We're glad you're here. Hashem loves every one of his creations and certainly loves you. And so we're very, very happy that you're here. The reality is like this. There is, first of all, yes, you're in a little bit of a unique situation. Having a Jewish father, which actually changes a status. Now, your mother, again, I don't know exactly what happened. We can talk about it privately at some point, but what happens is that let's just take an example of a mother's not Jewish. I don't want to talk about the conversion, but let's just say in a case where a mother's not Jewish. So then the child would not be Jewish. However, they do have a little different status because they have what's called Zera Yisrael, even though that it goes after the mother in Judaism. When the father is Jewish, we relate to it very differently when a person wants to convert. Because if the father is Jewish and the mother is not, even though technically the Jewish legacy goes on for the mother, but since they have that Jewish aspect in them, if they want to convert, it's a little different process, a little bit of a sort of easier process, and a little more as opposed to someone who doesn't have a Jewish father. We will say to them first, and don't really convert, be a Noachide. Okay. Now, that being said, it's certainly an option for you to to pursue your Jewish education if that's the direction you want to go in. And it's a little bit more for you. I would say it's not quite appropriate. It's your choice. But I'm saying, but what happens is if somebody is not Jewish, we will discourage first and say, well, being a Noachide is a beautiful thing, an appropriate thing. You kind of have a sort of a little bit more of a leeway to figure out where you're at and what you want to do. Now, as far as, so therefore, if you want to pursue that and learn more about Judaism and go in that direction, we could talk about that and how that's done. As far as the Noachide community right now, so this is something that we're all working on here. That's what we're trying to do right now. We have Rod here, who's from Netiv, and we're working together. And Dan, we're working with the World Noachide Center. What happens is in the world, the idea of it being a Noachide has really sort of been lost or very, very minimized over the years. And the reason for that is we're pioneering, but not because we're so doing something unusual. This was and is the system. The system is, it says in the prophets that Jews need to be a light unto nations. That means that they have to have all the people of the world recognize God and help them to recognize God and help them to do the commandments they need to do, which is the 7 Noachide laws. What's happened over the past 2 millennium, though, has been a tremendous persecution of the Jewish people. So when the Jewish people were in their land and they were, central power in the time of Solomon, other times David. So it was easier to go and to influence and help other people and to be a light unto nations. What's happened is that with the persecution of the Jews of the past 2,000 years, so the Jewish people couldn't really go and start teaching in Europe, during the Crusades. It wouldn't be like, okay, hey, let me teach you about the 7 Noachide laws, because that was not the process that's been happening for a while now. So, but now the world has really changed, and it's really moved back into the situation, which is fascinating. That's why we're working very hard to try to connect with people, and there are a lot of people right now who are not Jewish and who do want to know how to act properly, how to attain the world to come, how to be spiritual, all these components of being a Noachide. Now, we do have an issue right now, which is where, because the world's a big place. Jewish communities, like I'm in Israel now. Okay, so it's Jewish communities wherever you go. In America, it's these Jewish communities in these little places. And then what happens is that the prices go up because all Jews move into the Jewish community and they have to live near the Jewish community. And then like, okay, you want to buy a house and I've been living in Georgia, buy a house, I don't know, Naomi. We're going to buy up in Cummings or something, or Dahlonega, for $100,000, and then you go buy it in the Jewish community, and it's a lot more. So what happens is it becomes difficult right now, practically, for us to figure out how to help the communities locally. That's why what we're working on now is the online community, with a objective towards helping out in the places where people live. So the answer to your question in short is that we're working together to try to know where Noachides are, try to connect them with other Noachides. We're going to be coming around to different places in the States, going around helping. If there's a local Jewish community next to you, like I know David's in Houston, and so is Rod, and I have many students that are rabbis in Houston, and they're very accommodating. And if you're close to a Jewish community, then obviously you could tell me, and I will be happy to reach out to the local Jewish community to have to assist. And if you're not, then we'll start online, and God willing, we will hopefully be able to even get to the places where you are locally as more people start on this process, which is going to happen. That's not a maybe, because what happens is that it says, it's a verse in the prophets. It says, that the whole world will be filled with knowledge of God. That means everyone at some point will understand, like we say, Shema Yisrael. The Shema means Hear, O Israel, Hashem Elokeinu. Hashem, who is our God, Hashem Echad, he's the one God, and everyone will recognize that. So that is coming to a city near you. Okay, very good. All right, good. Any other thoughts, questions? Ellen, did I answer what you wanted to know?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, my pleasure. All right, what else we have? Dan, I haven't forgotten your question. I'm just gonna open up more because we'll see how much Purim we're gonna do. Yeah, Naomi.
Lift that hand.
All right. Hi, Naomi. You're up.
Hi. I had a comment that it really is a question, but you'll figure out my question. So, I went to, maybe you can tie it in with Purim, but I went to the park yesterday with Tamar, and there were some other Jewish kids with us, and everyone has their yarmulkes on and stuff, and then a bunch of people came up, and they were like Muslims, and they had like, it was like free Palestine gear. I mean, they had the state of Israel, and they had like it was like whatever, all kinds of stuff. Like I was just like,
unbelievable.
Yeah, it was just like, it was like a whole little free Palestine,
yeah,
and children and everything. And I was so uncomfortable because one of the kids was like right up beside the dude that had all the stuff on. And then I was like, come here. And like, I don't know. I felt so uncomfortable,
Sure. Of course.
And
yeah, I mean, I think you should. If a person is supporting someone who is a terrorist, you don't know what they could do. 100%.
Right. And anyways, and I was just thinking about it, I mean, I'm always thinking about it, but like obviously the situation and what's happening and, whatever, it's just everywhere, social media and all this stuff. And I was just thinking about the story of Purim and everything. And I'm just sort of just really, I don't know if fascinated is the word, but like, it's really just like mind blowing. It's almost kind of like the Trump thing, where it's like, it's just like all these people get together and they all say what they say. And then it's like, I guess my question is, I'm wondering I wonder what percentage of people who are like, I don't know what categories people are in. Like if they say they're anti-Israel, are they really saying they're anti-Jewish? What percentage of people out there at this point are really like, not like Amalek, but they're like, they really don't like Jews and they don't like Israel and they don't like, I'm trying to figure out, like, is it really as big as it feels? Or is
Okay.
it,
All right. Let's talk about this a second. I hear your question. It's a little hard to answer. Ellen, the answer is yes. I'll give you my information afterwards, as far as contacting. All right. So, all right, Dan, I'm putting up the left hand, which may be your right, and I'll start a new idea. Okay. Okay. So one of the things that it's very frustrating now is you sometimes hear information about things like the whole story of the terrorists who are killing Jews, and they say they still want to kill Jews, and the world's upside down, and they're calling the Jews the terrorists. So you try to explain it, and people get frustrated because, like, don't you understand? How can you not see what's going on? These are terrorists. They're murderers. How could you twist the reality? And the answer is very, very simple. And the answer is a bit shocking. But in the story of Purim, what happens is that you got to know the timeline. Timeline is not so clear when you're reading the story. You have to understand the deeper timeline the sages tell us. The story begins when Haman draws the lots of when he wants to kill the Jews. And it comes out it's going to be in the month of Adar, which is really the 11th month of the year. Now, the real story of Passover, then, the whole understanding of the fast and of Esther coming to the king, that all happens in the Nisan, the first month of the year. It's 11 months later when the whole war of Purim happens. That means that Haman was destroyed. It means that already the process had become where the whole world saw that the king had changed his mind. Originally, King Achashverosh had sent out a decree that said, everybody be ready for this special day in the month of Adar, the 11th month of the year, the Jewish calendar. 11, be ready for that day. And you're going to open up these special decrees. You'll see what the decree is. Now, they weren't supposed to open it, but people did, and they knew it was to kill every Jew. Then after the story, this is amazing. After the whole story happens and Esther says that she's a Jewess and all these things, they beg Achashverosh. She says to Achashverosh the king, please rescind the decree to kill the Jews. Achashverosh the king says, I can't do that because the Persian emperors, they were still supposedly bound by certain legal fictions or legal stories. Even though Achashverosh was trying to break that, here he didn't want to break that rule. And he said there's a law in Persia that when the king sends a decree, you cannot go and nullify the decree. So he said, we'll send in a new decree. The new decree is that the king supports the Jewish people to defend themselves against anyone that attacks them. And when the day of Purim came, this was the day before Purim when they fought the war, the 13th day of Adar, when that day came, so now what should have happened in the world is should have said, wait a minute, we're not going to fight the Jews. The queen is Jewish. The king supports the Jewish people. But people didn't. People wanted to go and fight still. And the Jews fought back, and it says they killed 75,000 people throughout the whole world. He had 127 nations. This was a massive kingdom, Persia. They killed 75,000 people. And the sages tell us they were all from Amalek. They were all people who we'll call in today's vernacular Nazis. And therefore, even though they knew that Esther was Jewish. They knew the king was supporting it. They knew the king was saying that the Jews can go and defend themselves. They supported it. Their hatred was so great, they were ready to come and kill the Jewish people. There's no doubt that the terrorist, Hamas, is a Molech. They have the telltale sign. There is one telltale sign, because we don't know what Molech is anymore. We can't tell. The people have all been mixed up. Since Sancherib, the conqueror, the Syrian conqueror, came and mixed up, he mixed up all the nations. It happened thousands of years ago. There was a well-known conqueror from the Assyrian army called Sancherib, and when they conquered a nation, they moved them around. So we don't know what Molech is anymore. But it's one telltale sign of a Molech. If he's willing to kill Jews at all costs, even at his own detriment, that's the sign. So they're spread out. We don't know where they are. And in the time of Achashverosh, the story of Purim, they were spread out throughout the world. And so therefore, when you try to reason with a person and say, wait, don't you understand? These guys are terrorists. We're trying to make peace. We're trying to give land. Yeah, that works. Give a two-state solution. Yeah, that works. No matter what you do, it's obvious. I mean, come on. I'm not going to prove it, but I'm not going to prove it to them. I'm not even going to waste my breath explaining it because the guy's a Nazi. He doesn't want to hear. Go tell Hitler, you really are not doing the right thing here. Yeah, he doesn't care. So all these people who are, and I want you to understand something so deep and so amazing. Haman, and all the old-time villains, Lavan in the Torah, these people did not come across as evil. They were like the ICC. Oh, yeah, we have to be fair here. Yeah, well, okay. So Sinwar, oh, maybe we can't find them. So he's a criminal, but Tanyahu's a criminal too. Yeah. Okay, come on. Who are you fooling? You're not fooling anybody. So if you want to, so the answer to your question is that yes, there are many, many, many Jew haters in the world. There are many, many Jew haters in the world, and there are people that aren't. And someone who is of a terrorist nature, that you can't talk to them. You can't talk to them because now there is some brainwashing. If you ever followed the son of the head of Hamas, a guy who had his eyes open, all right, you'll get that. But the truth is, anyone that really is not cruel in his heart, God is going to send him messages. He's going to send him people to talk to, like what's her name, Gabriella, Brigitte Gabriella, she's a Syrian woman, and she was told in Syria that the Jews were the devil, and she was in America, and she needed medical assistance. And a Jewish doctor was treating her, and she got freaked out. What is he going to do to me? And then he saved her life, and she started realizing she's been brainwashed, and she's a very strong advocate right now. So the answer is that we don't know who's who. We don't know who's a Molech. If a guy is a terrorist, you cannot reason with him. The person has a good heart and they're not Jewish, you could talk to them, and they will see the truth. And if they don't, you might not be able to convince them because they really may be somebody who's sold out all of their humanity, and they don't necessarily look bad. That's the thing. That's the most amazing part of this whole story right now. The most amazing part of this new phenomenon that we've seen in the world here, which is a kind of old phenomenon, but in the world where men and women are men, it's that the Nazis call the other people Nazis. That's when you know you're in a world of lies. How many are there? I don't know. But I know one thing, that every Purim, they're being erased. I don't gotta do it. I'd have to do it physically. I have to do my Purim properly. I have to read what God tells us to read, tells the Jewish people to read. We read it this past week, the Parsha of Zohar, to remember that Amalek is a conjugation of many, many interesting words. Amal, and the word Amalek is spelled Amal Kuf, which literally translates as the work of the monkey. Amalek is the philosophy that you're a monkey. You come from a monkey. You're a cosmic accident. It's amazing. I always tell you that when Darwin came up with his theory, his friend Huxley said that this is the most amazing thing. This gave atheists a way to rationalize what they always wanted to say. How could you explain this? Okay, there's no God. Okay. But what you've done is you've sold out anything meaningful in your life. The world is random. And that's why the numerical value of Amalek is the word safek, doubt. Because everything's a doubt. Maybe it's that. Maybe it's that. Everything is accident and happenstance. It's the work of the monkey. You're a random mutation from a monkey. You're not really. And so therefore, this is, and the craziest thing is, this is the mainstream philosophy of the world today. Wow. I want you to think about it a second, because, I'm not going to have a discussion on evolution, though we can, but they don't want to call it the theory of evolution. It's called the fact of evolution. It's a little funny because there's a lot of flaws to this theory, which you could look up. There's different books you could read. Michael Bay's book, The Black Box. There's a lot of good books talking about it, and what an evolutionary process might mean is not even the idea of a process is not even, that's not a contradiction to the Torah, because it could be there's a certain way that we do understand that God created things in the first day, and then afterwards he brought them out. But the idea of randomness, that the world evolved randomly, that philosophy is not only is it full of difficulties, but it's improvable. You can never prove that something was random. Even if things evolved, you can't prove it happened randomly. How do you know that there's not a plan? But the idea why it has to be held on to so strongly as this fact of evolution, because what it brings with it is depression, despair, and meaninglessness. If your life, if everything is random, there's no purpose in your life. And this is how Amalek trapped people. And so therefore the Torah says, remember what they did. What they do? What did Amalek do? The Jewish people left Egypt. Now that was God's calling card, because people ask, why doesn't God do miracles like that today? And the answer is very simple. Because the job in life today is to see the hidden miracles, to see in a sunset, why had that happen? To see in a flower, to see in a tree, to see in your child, to see in anything beautiful, to see there's godliness in the world. That's our job, to see in the hidden miracles. The revealed miracles, all of a sudden that changes the reality. Oh, whoa, this is out of the norm. And therefore it shook up the world, and it was God saying, I want to show you there's a creator to the world. And there is, not only is there a creator, but the creator is omnipotent. Okay, and not only that, but he's involved in the world. So the story of Egypt was a shakeup to the whole world. The whole world said, whoa, no one's ever escaped Egypt. You got to remember, we don't understand this, but we don't know how to build pyramids. We don't know how to make the mummies. The Egyptian culture was very advanced. It didn't have our technology, it had their technology, which was the occult. And no one ever escaped from Egypt. No slave ever escaped. An entire nation walked out. And everyone said, whoa, what's going on here? The cradle of civilization. And then they get to the Red Sea, and the water splits. And the sages tell us that the water split throughout the world, meaning that if you had water in your bathtub and you were taking a bath, you were cold at that minute because the water split. There was a change in all of nature, and everyone knew something big was happening, and everyone heard. And what happened was the Jews crossed the Red Sea, and the word was spreading like wildfire. And if you look there, you'll look in the book of Joshua, you'll see that when Joshua sent the spies, they said that everyone was petrified because they knew that God was leading the Jewish people into the land of Israel, and everyone was afraid because everyone knew this was it. Now, at that point in history, there was an important turning point. People were afraid. And so, okay, fear, if fear is debilitating, that's bad. But if you're afraid because you realize that you're living your life wrong, you could change it. And if you're afraid because you realize that there is a creator and he has expectations, then you could say, okay, I want to abide by it. So the whole world was this close, 1 inch away from changing and accepting. And literally what's happening today, accepting the Jews' role, that is the problem. That's what people cannot accept. The idea of a chosen people is very disturbing to people. Okay, it was very disturbing to Amalek. Okay, Amalek, who was he? He was the grandson of Esav. And his father Eliphaz taught him, so if you want to attain the world to come, you want to grow, connect to the Jewish people, be part of their mission, be part of their plan. And at that moment, he said, I'm going to do everything against them. I can't stand this idea. And so when the Jews crossed the Red Sea, the nation, that person of Malk already had many children, and they were already a nation, they said, we need to attack the Jews after they crossed the Red Sea. Now, wait a minute. Didn't you read the news? Don't you know you're going to lose? Don't you realize that there's no way to win? That God is directing them? And Amalek said, we don't care. We're suicide bombers. We don't care. We're the Nazis who will use the trains and use the trucks to transport Jews to kill instead of saving the war effort. That was the hatred that was so great. And so they fought against the Jews and they lost. But at that moment, they cooled the whole world off. The world said, maybe you can't beat the Jewish people. Maybe their God loves them, maybe. But you know what? You could still start a war. You still can navigate. And everything cooled off. And God said, remember what Amalek did. And every Purim, we remember what Amalek did. And that remembrance of, we have to uproot the idea of evil. It's really what it is. It's an amazing, amazing thing. And I'll tell you in a second, a few minutes when I go through, but we don't want to feel that way. We want to see the good in everyone. It is the Jewish mission to see the good, to pull the good out. That's why Abraham prays for Sodom, the worst people in the world. He says there's got to be good in them. And we can't imagine that somebody, I mean, and that's, by the way, in Israeli politics, that's one of the reasons the Israeli politicians are so stupid. Because if they would ask the rabbi would say, you don't understand. You may be looking at the face of evil. If it's Amalek, you can't go. You're going to keep trying to do this thing. You're going to give them Gaza. You're going to do a two-state solution, and it's not bombing you. Right. That's the truth. So when we remember that the evil that's in the world, and God willing, it's not a lot of people, but there is that evil. That evil is you can't reason with it. So the answer to them is, I don't know how many people. I know there still is a Moloch in the world. Every Purim, when we remember the idea of what this evil tried to do to block God and God's people, we remember that, and we put it in our hearts, and God continues the process of removing it and eradicating evil, and it's happening. Now, there are other people who are being blinded by them, and you know, God will, you know, if they open their hearts a little bit, they'll see the truth. But how many Amalekim there are there? I don't know. 75,000 of them attacked the Jewish people back in the story of Purim. They were all Amalek. And so too, when you see a suicide bomber, you see Hamas, they have the quality of Amalek. And so I got to tell you guys, if somebody supports that, no, you can't support it. If you support that terrorism, we have to assume you're also a terrorist. Nobody here would do that. Nobody listening to this class would do that. Say, barbarian? Somebody who does, they have that. So how many are there? There are some. Those are the ones you will never be able to explain it to. Don't even waste your breath. If they hear you, if they have that good component, they may be. People are misled, and eventually they'll come around. But Amalek doesn't want to come around. So who they are, I don't know. How many? Can't tell you. There are still quite a few. And the good news is that every year they are being removed from the world, whether you see it or not. Other hand. Yeah, that was Dan. That was your side. Lara, you're up.
I have two things real quick. Talking
Yeah.
about, like, first of all, Kamala, the name Kamala already has in it. The second thing is another Amalek that I know very well is called Tayyip Erdogan, the Golem. This man, he is decisive that he's going to conquer Jerusalem. And his whole plan is to come through Syria and attack. And you wonder, why do you want to go to Jerusalem? What do you have to do there? Why don't you try to, you know, increase the education in your country? People are suffering in poverty so badly. The entire youth is depressed. They have no jobs, no opportunities. They don't even want to go to college anymore because they see no reason to go to college because there are no jobs. His whole country is in shambles, and he wants to go conquer Jerusalem. What business do you have there?
Right.
And Turkey's population is 87 million. Israel is only 8 million. 87 million, yet there are 10 righteous people in Turkey. I guarantee that. I know them. But 87 million, if they just walked, they could simply kill people. They don't need any weapons. If they just walk and slap people around, they could kill 87 million. I mean, think about the numbers.
Yeah.
It's just so crazy.
Yeah.
So, okay, I'm going to leave that negative stuff aside. I'm going to say something maybe is funny. You probably heard everything that people blame Jews, that you rule the world, you change the weather.
They're capitalists, they're communists, they're
everything. But I bet you didn't hear this one. I just heard this one.
Okay.
The Jews Jewified the Bible.
That's good. That's good. Yeah.
Now
yeah,
they're blaming Jews for Jewifying the Bible. There you go.
Right.
That's all I had to say.
Yeah, you know, I'll tell you, but I'll tell you what you said, Lara, in the positive sense, because it's considered one of the greatest miracles that God protects the Jewish people with the millions of people around that want to kill us. And that's why when there's a Psalm of David, the Shir Amalos, we say it before you say the grace after meals generally, and it says, then will the nation in the future, the nations of the world would say what God has done, and then the Jews will say. And then when the question is, why does it say the nations first will recognize and then the Jews? And the answer is because only they know what they're plotting. every single generation, right now, there are people plotting. Right now, some of them, Haman's story, we know. We don't know all the other stories because God makes it fall apart in some way or another. And, Iran and Iraq were fighting the war for years, okay, so you didn't hear about Iran too much because they were busy fighting Iraq. They wanted to kill the Jews, but they were too busy killing each other, but the good news is that we're not, thank God we're not afraid because God is directing the show, not Turkey and not anybody else. So that's good. Yeah. All right, I'll tell you one thing on a different point. Dan, I'm going to go into another thing here, okay? So it's this hand. This hand starts. Sorry, I'm confusing you. This hand starts. Okay. I want to talk about something in particular that Lara just said right now. I think that there's a misunderstanding of the role of President Donald Trump. There's a misunderstanding about what he has to do. And I want to talk about one specific thing that people don't like. And I understand it because in Jewish law, it's actually very, very forbidden. In Jewish law, one of the things you can't do, it's one of the 4 things that a person will not see the divine revelation. You can't give a bad nickname to your friend. And it bugs people when the president gives people nicknames. Now, I want to explain first why in Jewish law it's such a problem. It's not one of the 7 Noahide laws, but I want to explain to you the rationale why it's so problematic. See, when I nickname you, what I'm doing is I'm taking you as an entity which has so much good in you, and I'm focusing on one negative thing, and that becomes your definition. It's like killing a person, really, because instead of seeing the person as they really are, you now have confined them to the one thing that you want to do. And that's one of the reasons that a lot of there are a lot of left-wing Jews who are very much against President Trump because they feel that it's the wrong thing to do. And I would probably advise him not to do it. However, he said something very good when someone asked him about it. He said, listen, you don't understand. I have to know how to fight these people. And the truth is, when you're dealing with people that are really evil or bad people, then you really do need to go and fight in a very difficult way. President Trump is not King David. King David has to be the righteous leader of the Jewish people. President Trump is called the King of Rome. That's what he is. America is a certain process of Rome. And he has to fight some very, very difficult people. And so, he's in a street fight with them. So I'm not saying you should do it. I recommend don't give nicknames because it's a very dangerous process. At the same time, you got to understand what he's doing. He is in a situation where he's fighting against a very, very corrupt system that he knows, and he's a street fighter fighting against it. Okay, that's fine. He doesn't be my rabbi. I want him to be the guy who's gonna intimidate the enemy and to fight. That's good. Let him do that. So people have a misconception of it, and I thought of it when you said it because you have to understand what everyone's role is. His role is not to be. He's not going to be the righteous, holy leader. He's going to be the person who has to have a right vision of where the country has to go, and he has to implement it. And therefore, so sometimes we get offended, and if you would have asked me, I would have said cut it out. I probably would say cut it out. I probably still tell him to cut it out because I didn't need to do it. But he's pulled back on it because he feels that this is part of his need to fight. But you know, it's amazing. When I'm looking at the situation in the world right now, it's really beyond believable. I'm like, I don't understand. Like, you see Elon Musk revealing $1 trillion of fraud. I don't understand how someone could be like, how can you do that? The guy's stealing from you. How you turn to the guy who catches the thief and yell at him? It's amazing. It's amazing. The only way I can explain this to you is the following principle. The idea is that both love and hate, the makalkal shur, what they do is they are such powerful emotions. They cause you to say crazy, stupid things. So when a person has tremendous love, they'll do wild things. If there's tremendous hate, they'll do wild things also. And what's happened is that the hate button's been pressed. You know, he gives nicknames. Oh, he did it. Oh, he did it. So the hate button's impressed, and right now it's out of control. But I don't know. When I was a kid, and that's funny because I have some old college friends who are still very much left wing and this and that, and I'm like, I just don't understand it because like when we were in college, we had a healthy suspicion of the government. We knew that something not right. If somebody was going to show that the government is taking millions of dollars to say I'd be like, yeah, we expected that. I don't know, but right now the world has gone is so nuts, and hopefully it's straightening out. And I think that's also what I would say. I think that Dan, I'm going to say another thing. I'm going to add to a different point in this. I'm going to talk about President Trump because I talk about politics here. So, does he have a potential of King Cyrus? And in a certain sense, you got to see the guy is in a situation where he's making serious changes, And what happens is, in the story of Purim, when Achashverosh, he's the one who stopped building the temple. He stopped it. And that was something he was never going to allow. And it ended up that his son, Darius, or called Cyrus, and that's the Cyrus the Talmud speaks about, he actually then started to build a temple. And therefore he was called a righteous king, even though he was not necessarily a religious person, but he had a certain direction. And God willing that this process is going to be the beginning of something very good. If you start with the process of truth, and I can't ignore this. I don't know how people don't kind of recognize this, especially people who call him an anti-Semite. He's got Jewish grandchildren. His daughter, his beloved daughter, is Jewish. It's like Queen Esther in the king's palace. I mean, it's an amazing thing. So I think there's really something that's coming out, and God willing, it's going to be fruitful in the future. God willing. Okay, good. We had another hand up, besides my hand. Someone else had another idea, thought, comment, question. Okay, Lara.
I just wanted to say that I've been watching Donald Trump for many, many years. There's something about him that he doesn't like injustice.
Yeah, right.
That's one thing that he just cannot stand.
Yeah. He
might not be, the most wonderful person, and he calls people with names. And like you said, he's really calmed down on that. He doesn't do that as much as he used to.
It's very calm. Having the government try to throw you in jail, take all your money, and shoot you 2 times could change a person. So he's definitely a lot more in control now. It's very interesting to watch.
But we can all agree that Joe was sleeping.
Yeah. But it was unfortunate. But really, what happened was that, and it's still happening. I can't tell you that I'm not a political person in the sense that I don't belong to this party, that party. We look towards what's closer to the correct Torah way. And what happened was the world was getting really nuts, and there's hopefully a shift back. And that shift back, I mean, right now, just talk about what happened right now. Trump cut $400 million from Columbia University for not protecting the Jewish people, students there. It's great. It's great. It's great because Naomi, because you went to the park and you were afraid, because this is not only has it been allowed in America, it's been encouraged. It's been encouraged, intentionally and unintentionally. It's been encouraged, and you can't. So, God willing, that's going to change. Yeah, Tara, you had a point, question, idea?
Hi, Rabbi.
Hi.
I was just gonna say, we all feel the same, like not understanding why you can't be in back of something he's doing that's good. But I always think about that spiritual blindness that is supposed to be in during this time. To me, that's what it is, because it's totally irrational.
Right. That's right. That's right. You know, as I say, be frank. And I tell you what bothers me, always bothers me in terms of like this, you know, President Trump, he says where he's at. Like he says where he's at. But like if you think that the politicians who are saying these lines and talking about these things, that's what is going on inside of them. It's really not. And you can't just go and say, oh, the politicians could say words, therefore saying words does not mean that's where they're at all. It's hypocrisy. So I think that, you know, I think that right now I think America is going to be in a much better situation. You know, I think, you know, listen, he's trying to shift a lot, so it's a little bit unsettling right now. The tariff story, listen to these things because it's a little unsettling, because things have been awry for a while. But anyway, but back to our story. Our story is that the world is in a situation where Purim is on the way, and Purim on the way means that, again, I don't, you know, it's funny with Queen Esther. One of the reasons it says she invited Haman to the party at the end, because she didn't want people to go and say, "Oh, our sister is in the palace and we're okay. We got to pray to God. We got to do what we have to do." You know, I don't want to put my trust in any human being, and I don't want to say this person, that person. We have to do is we have to understand that there is a process in this world, and we have to remove the evil in the world. And even like we said before, we got to remove the aspect of a Moloch from our own hearts, as Tara said earlier. You know, that yes, no, none of us here are a Moloch, thank God. But doesn't mean that we don't have any aspect in ourselves where we could be petty, or we can be vindictive, and that has to be removed. And that's the way we make ourselves a vessel to bring down God's light. So Purim is coming very, very soon. These are the days that it's already starting right now. There's a certain few days before Purim already has the energy of Purim that starts from the beginning of the month. But from the 11th of the month, it even had certain legal status of a time, a powerful time. And the truth is, Purim is really, even though it's a rabbinic holiday, it is really, in a certain sense, one of the holiest days, because and I want to explain to you one thing. There is a light that comes in the darkness, and that is one of the most powerful things, because you know, when God reveals himself and everyone sees the truth, then great, wonderful. Coming out of Egypt splits the Red Sea. Oh. But the story of Purim is in the exile, and we were little, and we still were in exile. It was the darkness, and then through there we saw that God is directing the show, that God is directing exactly where things have to be. That's an incredibly powerful thing to understand. As Lara said before, I don't care how many millions of people you got around. You're not running the show. God's running the show. And so therefore, even when things look dark and they look bleak and they look frightening, everything is going to exactly where it has to go. So don't get nervous. Enjoy the ride a little bit. It's a little bumpy sometimes, but God is bringing us all to that point of redemption, the point of clarity. The world, although in the one level, the world is getting crazier, but on the deeper spiritual level, the world every day is being more and more rectified. And that's why the time of Mashiach is getting very, very, very close. As the Talmud says, the telltale sign, the Talmud says, how you know Mashiach is close is one day, it says, in the future, the land of Israel will give fruit again. What? Isn't that normal? I buy Jaffa oranges all the time. What are you talking about, Rabbi? Yeah, I go to the store, tons of Jaffa oranges. Yeah, because our lives are a little blip in history. Go tell a person 300 years ago that the Jews would be back in their land and the desolate land that God said would be desolate and would remain desolate. This, you need to understand this because it's part of that false narrative. The land was desolate because God said it would remain desolate until the Jews come back. Nobody could settle it. Yeah, they're talking about going to Jerusalem now. Yeah, so the Christians and the Muslims are fighting over Jerusalem, but don't want to live here because they couldn't live here. Why couldn't they live here? How come everyone can live here now? How come in the time of David and Solomon and all the thousands of years, this was the greatest, most beautiful land, the perfect climate, and then somehow, we don't know, some blip in history for a couple thousand years, it was uninhabitable. Mark Twain said, nothing grows there. And then, strange enough, over the past number of years, the Jews came back and it's thriving. How is that? Oh, you think it's the technology? No, not technology. Yeah, God gave us technology to do what it had to do, but because it says that's what's going to happen. That it's going to stay desolate. And it's actually brought in the curses. When God says that He's going to punish the Jewish people, He says, but don't worry. One of the consolations there is that when they're exiled, no other nation will be able to settle this land. Isn't that crazy? Well, what? How come everyone wants it now? They didn't want it before. Like, yeah, okay, well, but people with nomads, and as we said, and this is the whole farce of the whole Palestinian people. If you want to go look at a book called From Time Immemorial by Joan Peters. So she was hired by the Palestinians to write a book about their story. She started researching it, and she started to see that the whole thing was a farce. And she uncovered what happened was the Jewish people started coming back to the land of Israel in different phases. Okay, there was always a Jewish presence here. Nachmanides in the 1200s, when he was kicked, he was forced to debate by King Ferdinand. He was forced to debate against the Pablo Christiani, and he beat Pablo Christiani in the arguments. And it was the first time that the Jew was allowed to answer. They had a rule: if the debate, the Jew couldn't answer. So Nachmanides convinced the king to let him answer. So he answered, and he won the debate. So now this guy Pablo Christiani was stuck because now he looked like an idiot. He lost the debate, and he promised the king he was going to win. So he started saying he won the debate. So Nachmanides wrote a book which we have today. It's called Sefer Vikuach, the Book of the Dispute. He was a genius. He wrote every point of the argument out. This whole days-long debate, he wrote it all out. He wrote the book, and of course, as reward for that, the king said, "Okay, I'm going to have to kill you now because you won the debate." So he ran away, ran to Jerusalem, and he gathered a minyan in the old city of Jerusalem, but there were very few people, but there were always Jews here. And then the Jews came back in 1492, when the Jews were exiled in the Spanish Inquisition on Tisha B'Av, the 9th day of Av. They were exiled from Spain, and they went to the city of Tzfat, and that was the great revival of the city of Tzfat. Amongst those Jews that were exiled was a child at the time named Rabbi Yosef Cairo, who became the author of the Jewish Code of Jewish Law. and the great revival that happened in Sfat in the 1500s. And then, as time goes on, more Jews started settling. And then in the late 1700s, early 1800s, the Vilna Gaon, the leading Jewish rabbi of the time, he started to pick up from Lithuania to walk to Israel. To reestablish Israel, he was the leader, to walk. This old rabbi walking from Lithuania to Israel. He went, and certain things happened that were miraculous, that he saw God was stopping him. So he turned back. God didn't want him to go. He tried a second time. And also things miraculous happened, and he had to turn around and go back. And he realized that for whatever reasons, God didn't want him to go. But he told his students to go later on. And as did one of the other great leaders at the time, the Baal Shem Tov, they sent their students. And their students started going and settling. And I know their students because their grand students are friends of mine. They live in the old city of Jerusalem, and I'm very close with them. And they were sent here by the Vilna Gaon in the early 1800s. The late 1800s, they started coming in mass. And that was the movement called the Chovei Tzion. Before the Zionist movement, the lovers of Zion, the rabbis were sending every community, people coming. Now, here's the part you got to know. Then, when the Jews started coming back in the late 1800s en masse, so the nomadic Arabs who were living from Syria or Lebanon or wherever, Egypt, they were very poor, and they saw that the Jews were coming and starting industries. Okay, they were sent by Baron Rothschild and other people to go and to start wineries and various other things. So when they saw there was jobs, there was money, they came. So for every Jew that came along 10 Arabs to work. And that is the story of the Arabs, because it was desolate. People were nomads. There was nomad people going through here. As the Jews started coming back, more Arabs started coming back. And that's why the whole Palestinian story is not, and the Arabs will tell you also that they were not a nation. They were a whole mixture of various people from various places. And that is where this myth of this Palestinian nation, no such thing. The name Palestine, just all know, I imagine you all do know this. The name Palestine was a name that was invented by the Romans after they conquered Jerusalem, because they wanted to stick it to the Jews. So there was an ancient nation called the Plishtim, which have nothing to do with the Palestinians today. That nation has been long gone. That was a seafaring nation that was worshipped a fish god, half fish, half person, called Dagon. Was their fish god? It's an idolatry. That they worship the fish god, and they don't exist. So the Romans, when they stick to the Jews, they call it Palestine. So now these nomadic Arabs call it Palestinians. It's a farce, and it's another lie in the world that you have to see through. Okay, sorry for the history lesson. I just thought I would throw it out there. James, last question.
Rabbi, do you have time to answer Dan Barrel's question?
Thank you. Oh gosh, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Wow. Okay. I wanted to go into the Purim thing, and I forgot to tie it back to Dan's thing. Thank you so much, James. And I apologize.
Rabbi, can I just reiterate on that question point? It was Lara that brought it up to me earlier today, and it's connected with the verses in the book of Joel, chapter 2 and chapter 3, about where the sun and the moon will grow dark and the stars will no longer shine. And this Friday after Purim, this Friday we have a lunar eclipse, and also at the end of this month we have a solar eclipse. I don't know if you've got anything you could say in relation to the book of Joel on the matter.
It's chapter 4:15, chapter 4, not 1-2.
So what I can say is like this. There are some Talmudic discussions about eclipses. There are, and there are some discussions. However, I again, I want to explain. I mentioned this last week also, just to understand the idea of astrology is extremely misunderstood. Astrology was a form of idolatry, meaning that people would be called stargazers. They would look at the stars and think the stars would determine their destiny, which is in the form of idolatry. There is some truth to the idea, though, that when God brings down certain flow to the world, the experts who know how to read the map, they will see an imprint in different formulations of the constellations and the planets. So there is some, but again, there is some idea there of reading some that certain things would happen. Now, there is some discussion about lunar eclipse, what it can refer to, slowly what it can refer to. But I do want to stick with the basic idea, which is that you have to understand that there is not none of these things don't determine anything, and therefore kosher astrology. Who wrote that? Yeah, I see the book. Who's the author?
I don't know, read it.
Kosher astrology, Yitzchak Aaron Kaczynski.
Okay, I don't know who he is. You got to look at the beginning to see if he has what's called approbations. That's the rule. Any book that you buy, any Jewish book that you buy, you must look in the beginning. And if the person has approbations, he has what's called askamas from recognized rabbis, then you could read it. Otherwise, don't read it.
Okay.
Because people could say anything they want to say, you know. I mean, so anyway, so my bottom line is, all I have to say about this really is that what the Torah says, that if we do what's right, we don't have to be worried about the signs or the stars, because the stars don't determine what is happening in the world. The determination is not, the stars are only a reflection of it. So right now, you know, there is various things that could happen, being good for different people and challenging for other people. And I think that Purim, which really is a destruction of evil, of a Molech, should hopefully be signified by those who want to represent themselves as being the sun and the powerful ones, who that eclipse is in a certain sense could be relevant to that. But the bottom line is that, like I say, it's not, don't get caught in the stars too much, because it's not affecting it. It's just an imprint of it. And we know what's going to happen. What's going to happen is that the Purim story is happening, and Molech is being destroyed. And if that could be seen in an eclipse, then good, let it be. Okay, that's the best I have on that, Dan. I could look at the book of Joel to see what's referring to exactly. That's the best I got at this point. But again, you have to understand a lot of times, especially when you read prophets, you have to understand what the analogies are. There's a lot of different meanings of the sun and the moon, what they refer to. It's not always even referring to it in terms of constellations. It has another certain Kabbalistic meanings that's referring to. So, you know, it's not necessarily talking about signs of sorts.
Okay, thank you so much, Rabbi. Just know we appreciate you, and we've missed you, and we're glad to be back with you, and we're not sure when we're going to be live again with you, so please stay in touch. I've got to do an upgrade on my computer before I can really start splicing, but I ordered a part this morning, so I'm on top of things, Rabbi, as much as I can be on my end, but still trying to live life and be busy and hectic, and
good.
Yeah, it's all good.
All right, we're gonna get together. So we're just trying to figure out how often we were doing it every week. We may have to go every other week. We're trying to work it out. We'll announce it. Get back together. Ellen, you can send me rabbiingber@gmail.com. INGBER. Rabbi INGBER at gmail.com. And I look forward to seeing you guys in a few weeks. And good. We'll be in touch. All the best.
Yes, great. Glad to see.
Sure.
Yes,
Shalom.
glad to see this class back together and a good group show up. Exciting as always. Tars, thank you for being there and being steady. And yeah, good to see Lara there. And welcome, Ellen. We hope you'll come back. I do all my advertising for this class on Facebook, and I do post it on YouTube as well. So, yeah, appreciate you coming, Ellen, and feel right at home. This group from Netiv, a very, very close-knit group, and I'm sure you can connect with somebody, and you're on a unique journey for sure. So, yeah, on that note, I think maybe I should wind it down for today, and please keep an eye out, and we will post the next time we're on. So until then, have a wonderful, wonderful day, everybody. Bye for now.